What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Live DFS NBA Playbook Pro live stream. I'm John Pemba, alongside, as always, James Grande. James, 9-game Monday slate we're breaking down here tonight. You and I did a podcast last night, kind of give an early look. You have your Fantasy Live starting five video. We have the playbook out. The optimal lineups will be coming out in a little bit. We've been in subscriber chat all day answering questions. But let's get down to it. Why don't you give us a quick overview? I know there are a ton of totals that we need to talk about on tonight's slate.
Yeah, so of the 9 games we have tonight, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 over 220. That is kind of like unprecedented when it comes to DFS basketball. I mean, it kind of says a lot when the Jazz and Grizzlies are near 220 and up over 220. I think that speaks to the type of offense that we're seeing this year. So, I mean, there is going to be a ton of points scored tonight. So I think we're going to see some pretty juicy, winning lineups tonight. Just based on Vegas, as long as Vegas is right, of course.
Yeah, for sure. We'll start right off with the point guard spot. We'll jump right into it. You and I are both big Steph Curry fans tonight. Assuming that the Suns can kind of keep it competitive, it was a 12.5 point spread on that game. So, they're projecting sort of a blowout, but we've seen the Warriors play 2 close games already this season, or 3 close games rather already this season. And Curry has put out a ton of points, over 50 fantasy points in the first 2 games, 46 DraftKings points against Denver yesterday. What do you like about him tonight? Do you think the Suns can keep it close to allow him and Kevin Durant, who we'll get to in a little bit later, reach their value?
I mean, I think what we can definitely say for certain is teams aren't always great on back-to-backs, and I know the Warriors are a different breed, essentially, but I think that could play into playing Curry. We don't necessarily love using jump shooters, as I alluded to on the starting 5 video, on back-to-backs, but this guy is totally different. I think Phoenix, because it's, Golden State is playing a back-to-back. Draymond doesn't have the conditioning he had. He had a late start to his year. Who knows how he fares tonight? And some of the other guys, this is their first back-to-back. The conditioning might not be there. So, Phoenix, who is a track meet type team, could keep this close. And if it's close, we gotta it's hard to ignore a 227.5 over-under.
Right. No, I definitely agree with you there. It'll be interesting to see exactly how this young running gun type style, but they have some playmakers there now, some guys like Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton that can score the basketball, maybe keep it a little bit closer. 2 guys that are priced very similarly on both FanDuel and DraftKings, but they're flipped in terms of who's more expensive is John Wall and Dame Lillard. For me, I like Lillard better in the matchup between the two, but obviously he's a little bit cheaper on DraftKings, a little bit more expensive on FanDuel, so maybe you go Wall on FanDuel. I think they both have similar upside, though. How are you deciding who to play between the two?
I don't know if there's, like you said, there's much of a difference. I think you can go either way. I would just take the salary relief on each site. The total has gone up to 227 in this game as well, and so I don't think there's a wrong answer. Something that we talked about on the podcast is how many, high-priced guys there are, and we're going to be really pinching pennies. So I think the approach should be, you go with the cheaper guy on FanDuel, that's Wall, and then you go with the cheaper guy on DraftKings, and that's Lillard.
That's fair. Moving down the point guard spot, any mid-tier guys you want to talk about? I know for me, Lonzo Ball with no minute restriction, Rajon Rondo suspended in the starting lineup. Spurs are always a little bit scary, but I mean, we've seen Lonzo fill up the stat sheet. He had a decent game against Houston when he got the extra minutes, 26 minutes, 27 fantasy points. How much do you like him today? Especially his DraftKings price point, I think, is really nice.
Yeah, I like him. I like him more knowing that there's no restriction. I'm just a little hesitant about him and LeBron playing next to one another. I don't also foresee Lonzo hitting 4 of 8 threes again. He wasn't a good shooter last year. He didn't get a camp to, at least we didn't see if he improved his jump shot in the offseason far too much. So I don't know if I buy the efficiency that we saw, but like you said, he can stuff a box score ultimately. So I think he's fine. I think he's going to be pretty popular, especially at this price tag. So I think if you're someone, I don't think this is like he must get chalk. So if you want to fade him in a tournament, that's fine. But I'm not going to tell you not to play. I think he's a solid play.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Any other point guards catching your eye today?
Yeah, so he's point guard eligible on DraftKings and shooting guard on FanDuel. I think Luka Doncic, this Chicago-Dallas game, we were just talking about it before we got on, is maybe the key tonight. We didn't get a total when we did our pod last night, but it came out 230, and no Harrison Barnes again today. No Dirk still. 25% usage rate. We saw Doncic explode for 26 actual. He's playing like forward and guard. He's kind of and he's playing minutes. I think this game, the Bulls are the 5th worst defensive efficient team in basketball. I think there are going to be a lot of pieces in winning lineups tonight from this game, particularly on the Dallas side, because we've seen how poor Chicago is so far to start the season. Maybe Chris Dunn, brings some life to that team, like a little bit. But I think Doncic is a really, really, really good tournament play on either side. I know the positions doesn't necessarily matter. I'm kind of shocked that he's not multi-position eligible on DraftKings, but
right, everybody else,
right? Except Luka Doncic, who's playing forward, but he's only point guard eligible. Like that's whatever. It's only a matter of time. But yeah, I love Doncic in that mid-tier price tag tonight.
That's fine. If we're going with some value, I think both of you and I agreed on the podcast that Fred VanVleet is someone that I think we really have to consider. $4,600 on DraftKings, over on FanDuel. I think he's even around that same price, $4,900. This is a guy that has a legitimate role in this rotation. 6th man off the bench, playing no less than 25 minutes in any of the 3 games so far this season, averaging about 25 fantasy points, which at his price tag is just around 5x, a little bit over, which is exactly what we're looking at. This matchup tonight against Charlotte, I think, is going to be a good one. For the guards, do you think VanVleet is cash game worthy?
Yeah, I mean, as long as DeLon Wright is going to be out for however many games, and as long as DeLon Wright remains out, Fred VanVleet is going to see consistent minutes, period. He's going to play along Lowry. He's going to run the backcourt himself. It's kind of a no-brainer in all formats at that price tag. You're getting someone who's going to even close out games. They'd rather go to the small lineup with him as opposed to going big with Valanciunas. So I think VanVleet is viable in any format you want tonight. I think he's an excellent play. I'm trying to look up I saw something. All right, so pace isn't really a factor tonight. Charlotte's playing really, really slowly, but that shouldn't matter. Toronto's actually playing even slower. They're both playing really slow, but I don't think that should affect VanVleet at all.
Yep, that's fair. Let's move on to shooting guard, a player that I have, and you and I talked about this on the podcast again this morning. That mid-tier shooting guard position range, guys starting from, you could probably go the whole way minus Curry, who's point guard eligible more likely. But Booker 84, Oladipo 82, Butler 8,000, DeRozan 74, Middleton 72, Hardaway, Levine, Beal $7,000. If I can make a whole roster of just that group, which you almost can on DraftKings, how do you decide who to go? Who are you leaning towards here?
So I think. If we're just talking pure upside, I think Booker and Butler probably top the list just based on what we've seen in the past and just, resume. I know Butler doesn't have the best matchup, which is why I'm kind of hesitant. But Devin Booker, if that game can stay close, we already said that we like Steph Curry. So we kind of are both in agreement that this game could stay close. And if that game's staying close, if Steph Curry is making shots and Kevin Durant is making shots, then Devin Booker's got to be making shots on the other side because as great as Isaiah Cannon is, it's not going to be him keeping him in this game. So I think Booker upside. I think it's so hard to ignore Bradley Beal and Zach LaVine at their price tags though. $7K for a guy who just scored 32 points and $7.1K for a guy who scored 30 plus in the first 2 games. I know Chris Dunn is back, but I don't think that takes away from Levine's shooting because, Dunn isn't someone who necessarily needs to score. He's a very good passer. He's very good in the passing lanes. So I think he could actually Levine could benefit from playing with alongside Dunn in terms of catch and shoot, in terms of being able to Dunn sucking in the defense and getting Levine an open lane. So I think both of Beal and I saw you love DeRozan too. So like you can't like you said, you can't go wrong with any of them. I just think the Booker Butler upside is there, and then it's hard to ignore the other three. Middleton and Hardaway are fine.
Quickly put a lineup together here. Booker on DraftKings, you can do this. Booker at point guard, DeRozan at shooting guard, Jimmy Butler at small forward, Tim Hardaway Jr. at the regular guard position, Bradley Beal at the utility position, and then filling it in, I have Zach Collins at power forward, your boy Kevin Looney at center, and Dorian Finney-Smith at forward. So I can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those shooting guard, small forward players in the lineup out of the 8 positions that they give us. So I guess you can, in fact, make a lineup out of the mid-tier that we just mentioned.
Do you think Tim Hardaway is going to be this same player all year long? Is he going to give us like 24?
He's the only one that can shoot the basketball effectively on that team. So I think his usage rate's going to continue where it is. Right. They just lost Knox, who sprained his ankle. He was at least taking a bunch of shots.
A lot of shots.
Are they going to replace him with like Noah Vonleh? Are we really going to trust him? Trey Burke, sure, he was good at the end of last year, but we haven't really seen it, this year. So, yeah, I think you're going to see just all of the shots come from Hardaway. I think he's someone you could probably rely on. But, I mean, again, if you wanted to pull him out, you certainly can. I was just kind of making a joke about being able to fit everybody, right. But it's doable. If you take out Tim Hardaway out of that lineup, you can put Enes Kanter in if you feel better about that matchup instead. So, again, we'll get to those positions as we move on. But I think this shooting guard position over on DraftKings is absolutely loaded. On FanDuel, pricing's a little much more tougher. Butler $9,600. Don't think I want it there. No, Donnie Mitchell $8,500. Don't love it. Oladipo $85. Don't love it. So tougher pricing. Hardaway's still a decent value at $7,400 on FanDuel. Zach LaVine, who I think we both really love, $7,600 on there. And then you mentioned Doncic already, but and DeRozan and Beal I think are good mid-tier options as well. Any kind of lower value guys? I know we talked on the podcast about Josh Hart. I think he's going to get a bump today in playing time with everybody suspended. Already playing really well off their bench and averaging just under 30 fantasy points, just over 30 fantasy points over the first 2 games.
Yeah, there's no reason he shouldn't see an uptick in kind of a role. But even if he stayed where he was, right? Like even if he doesn't see an uptick at all, that's fine. He's seeing the minutes, he's seeing the production, he's playing alongside 2 very good passers to, help him get in spots to be efficient. So I think Hart is really fine. How about for $100 cheaper? I think, again, I'm going to go allude to this Dallas-Chicago game. Yep. Wesley Matthews. He's actually opened this year playing. I mean, the minutes have never not been there. Rick Carlisle loves Wesley Matthews, and it's because he can play defense. That's just what it is. He's a great on-ball defender. That's why I think he's going to play. He's going to mirror Zach LaVine's minutes tonight, probably, and just chase him around the floor.
And no Harrison Barnes, the shots are going to be there for him. So.
Right, and the shots are going to keep being there. I mean, he's taken 18 3-pointers in 2 games. If more than 6 fall, like let's say he takes 10 and half fall, I mean, we're at a really good. He's hit 6x in his first 2 games. So I think Wesley Matthews can be a really strong play in a tournament here tonight.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you there. We'll mention, again, sticking with this game because you had him in your starting 5, but Justin Holiday.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know I've had a question on Twitter, and you asked me before we got on air if Chris Dunn coming back affects Holiday, but it's not like we're out here saying, oh, Justin Holiday is going to suck up all the usage for Chicago. Like, that's not the case. There's Bobby Portis and there's Zach LaVine for that, So we're not really worried about the usage rate. Holiday took 8 shots last game and scored 19 points, 34 DK points. So if we can get 8 shots efficient, he's good on the glass. He's good in the passing lanes. And, we saw that last game with 2 steals. I think the value can still be there. He's going to see the minutes, period. There's no Denzel Valentine. There's no one backing him up, essentially, at small forward. The Bulls go really small, and they play Blakeney and Levine kind of shifting down to small forward, but they're not going to play them often. It's going to be Holiday basically exclusively. So, yeah, I think he's a really strong play. I'm sticking to it even with Chris Dunn back.
Yep, I hear you. Moving on to small forward, as I mentioned, the mid-tier or that sort of like 7K range over on DraftKings was very difficult to choose from. Well, on small forward, it's all the guys at the top. Giannis, James, Durant, Leonard. Over on FanDuel, they're all highly priced. Leonard's just under 10K, but all the other guys are over 10K. Giannis is at $12.2 thousand against the Knicks. On DraftKings, they're all equally as expensive. Giannis, James, and Durant all over 10K. Leonard cheaper of the bunch there, but how are you differentiating between the three? How would you rank the three today?
So I think for safety, probably Giannis and LeBron 1A, 1B. I think upside, I love the Phoenix Golden State game. So I think Durant, not to say that these guys don't all have crazy upside, because they all have, upside through the roof, 80, 90, whatever, the sky's the limit. But I think the matchup based, like just considering matchups, I think Durant has the matchup, has the pace. He's playing a back-to-back, which I'm kind of about, lukewarm. But I love Durant. I think I do like the savings off Giannis for going down to LeBron. We mentioned it with kind of Wall and Lillard earlier. I think money is going to be something that we really want, and we really need to fit, to make that perfect lineup tonight. So I think I would probably play LeBron over Giannis, Durant over both in tournament.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there. I think Durant definitely has the highest tournament potentially upside, just given the matchup and sort of his role in that team. I like LeBron. I think he's going to really make sure that the Lakers don't go 0-3 to start the year under him. The Spurs don't have Kawhi Leonard or anything like that to defend him. So I think LeBron is going to get that first win here tonight in LA for the Lakers.
They're actually playing at the fastest pace in the NBA this year.
Yeah, I believe it. And now you get Lonzo Ball, a point guard who can push the pace a little bit. So for me, I think James is probably the guy I'm going to go to with the majority of my lineups, just because he's sort of in that middle price point of them as well. So I guess that's where I'm looking at the top. If we're going to jump down sort of to that mid tier, obviously Leonard fits the sort of the mid-ish tier over on DraftKings, but a guy that I was on a lot last year for cash games. This year he's putting up really good numbers. Is Joe Ingles in Utah? They get the Memphis Grizzlies. This is another game with a high point spread, but also really high game total. Utah's playing and giving up a lot of points, something they haven't usually done in the past. And I just love his price point. I think he is a cash game lock again for me today.
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying he's like a mini Gordon Hayward, essentially. Like he fits so well into that Gordon Hayward role when Hayward left. And, I mean, he's just firing on all cylinders. And Utah's offense is firing on all cylinders right now. 123 points in back-to-back games. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and ever dispute that, because he's playing extremely well. Extremely well. I love Ingles tonight.
Yep. Any other mid-tier guys catching your eye? I know there's a few value people we've talked about, or we're going to talk about, but any more mid-tier?
I don't love the mid-tier today. I think
spend down.
Yeah, I think this is like that one position on every slate that you make a stand where you spend up or you spend down, and nothing in the mid-tier stands out as like a tournament play. You're like, wow, I need X, I need Y. There's nothing there for me. We mentioned Kuzma on the podcast, but I mean, we can also mention him at power forward. So depending on where if you need a mid-tier small forward, multi-position eligible, Kuzma could fit the mold. But I'd rather spend down or spend up, like you said.
Yeah, Gordon Hayward is, he's risky because he's still on that minutes limit, but 28 fantasy points, 27 fantasy points in the two games in 24 minutes. So he's still hitting value sort of at that 6.5K range. It's a little bit under 5X, which isn't ideal, but, if you live with that 4.5X range, you can get there. Orlando's not a good team, so maybe he even, gets on fire a little bit in the role that he has. I don't think you need to go there really, though, however. If we are looking down, On DraftKings, we mentioned we think Michael K. Gilchrist could be an interesting play because he's so cheap. Can't play him on FanDuel at 5K.
Nope.
But Dorian Finney-Smith, I think, is someone's worth looking at as a cheaper option. He's $4,300 on FanDuel. Over on DraftKings, he is $4,100. He's played 30 minutes in each of the first two games. Again, not someone that you look for towards offensive output, but he contributes across the board with all the other categories. And he's averaging just under 24 fantasy points. So, that's about 6x return at his price tag. Then you add in the fact that this game has a humongous point spread. That could even give him a little bit more of a boost. So I like him tonight as a value play at small forward.
If you're stacking, is Dallas the best stack on the slate? Just in terms of price, the price tags, the price points that all these guys are at. I mean, he's gonna be banging down low with Bobby Portis all night, so he's gonna be in line for uptick in rebounds. I know Jordan is gonna suck up most of them, but it's not like he's gonna be playing primarily next to Jordan. So I mean, there's gonna be other opportunities for rebounds unless Jordan grabs 40 rebounds here. I think Finney-Smith is really a good play along with everyone else on the Mavericks. But someone we mentioned yesterday, how about your boy Garrett Temple? Are you budging?
I don't ever remember taking claim to Garrett Temple. But I mean, sure, I guess he had that just insane game, against Atlanta. 42 points. I don't think I can trust that to happen again. I don't think I'm going to go there either. I'm not even going to say maybe GPP dart. If Garrett Temple again costs me money, then what? Touche to him. One more value small forward I think we can look at is Evan Turner. Again, he sort of solidified his role off the bench there in Portland. Averaging about 25 fantasy points. 20 to 25 minutes ignite. So I think again $4,000. Now, on FanDuel, again, you could just be sort of that punt option where they drop your lowest score anyways. But I don't know. I think he's still a decent little guy. If you're trying to save money, he won't kill you. I think he's pretty secure with his floor level of production. Yeah,
Evan Turner, I am always lukewarm about Evan Turner. He won't kill you, but the upside, I think it is kind of capped. I think he's fine, but I think there's capped upside.
Totally care. Let's go to power forward. LaMarcus Aldridge on FanDuel leads the way against the Lakers. Obviously, he's doing Aldridge things. He had 57 fantasy points against Minnesota. Only 35, and so it should have been a revenge narrative game against Portland. But I mean, against the Lakers, I think this is a good spot for him. You mentioned that LeBron James has spent the majority of his time playing power forward and center this year.
Power forward and center, yeah.
So I mean, I guess he'll be the one matched up with Aldridge. Maybe that takes Aldridge out of it a little bit, but we've also known that James hasn't really been one to try so much on the defensive end as he's gotten into the later years of his career. So maybe Aldridge can take advantage of that. A matchup that you and I are both really intrigued about, though, Aaron Gordon and Jason Tatum are playing against one another today. They're priced similarly across both sites. If you had to pick one, which one would you prefer?
I mean, I would pick Tatum primarily because Orlando's so bad defensively and Boston's second in defensive efficiency a year after being first in defensive efficiency. So, I mean, I think Gordon is intriguing, but I would just prefer Tatum because he has the better overall matchup. And he's been better, more consistent. So
my Celtics bias aside, I am loving the fact that Tatum is grabbing rebounds now.
Right.
He's had 9 rebounds, and 14 rebounds over the last 3 games. 24 points and 14 boards against the Knicks. 16-9 against Toronto, 23-9 against Philly. I think this is a good matchup for him as well. I understand Gordon's certainly probably the more athletic of the two, but Tatum is longer, and I think he's the more polished scorer, and that he'll be able to still, get enough space to get his shot off. And I just love the fact that with the spread NBA game that we're looking at now, the Magic have adopted that as well. Vucevic takes outside jump shots. Horford shoots from the outside. So it's really opening up the lane for these rebounds to come to whoever wants them. It seems like Tatum is being aggressive enough to grab them. Gordon as well. He's got double-digit rebounds in all 3 games this year. But that'll be an interesting little matchup to see who does what. A guy that you've had in your starting 5 today, Jaren Jackson. I don't think I like him as much on FanDuel where he's 6,800, but huge value over
Lock on DraftKings, right? I mean, he's the price discrepancy sometimes is insane to me. 6.8K on FanDuel compared to 5.2K on DraftKings. It's really hard to ignore. I mean, he was taken fourth overall for a reason. We saw him come off the bench in a game where we were all on the fence if Marc Gasol was going to play. So I actually did have some exposure the other day, and maybe that's why I'm like, wow, he did what? I mean, 24-7 with 2 assists. He really did everything. And something that we mentioned is he is going to obliterate Derek Favors is a good defender, but he cannot keep up with athletic players like Jackson. And then if they turn to Jay Crowder's just too small to keep up with Jackson.
Yeah.
If they then turn to Rudy Gobert, then who's going to guard Marc Gasol? So he really presents a matchup problem for Utah, and Utah's generally, has been one of the best defending teams in basketball for the last few years. So I think Jackson at 5.2K is a lock for any format you want to play him. I'm not hesitating at all.
Yep, that's definitely agree with you there. I like Marcus Morris tonight. Assuming he does play, Morris can get some additional run at power forward. I also think if you're looking for just a complete punt, maybe potential upside play, I think Daniel Tice is another guy to look at. If you look at some of his stats towards the end of last year, he was relatively productive before he ended up getting hurt. An increase. We got 3 more minutes, though, on the side stream before we jump into the subscriber chat. So let's talk about the center position. James, where are you going?
DeAndre Jordan. Again, I know I sound like a broken record talking about these Mavs, but no Harrison Barnes. We saw Jordan score the basketball, which is not something that we're familiar with. And, he's only averaging 11 rebounds a game. The Bulls are only averaging 40 as a team. I can't imagine a scenario that Jordan doesn't have 15-plus rebounds tonight. I don't. I'm being bold.
Yeah.
This is my first bold statement of the night of the season. I think he might even go for 20 tonight.
You won't say 20, but maybe 20 if you watch the.
Look, yeah. If you watch the starting 5 video, I do say something along those lines. Yes. So I think he's the top spend up. I know Karl-Anthony Towns. He has all the talent in the world, and we love attacking Miles Turner defensively. But I think Jimmy Butler might be onto something. Yeah. He might be onto something, saying that Towns is lazy and all this stuff.
Sabonis is going to play tonight, so the rebounding can be a little bit tougher on Towns as well.
Right. And he was only coming off a 5-rebound effort his last time out. So I mean, if you want to do it, we've seen Towns over 10K a lot of last year, and he was worth it. So if you want to play it from from that perspective, where you think 8.7K on because he's too expensive on FanDuel. I'm not paying that price.
I'm not playing him, to be honest with you. I don't think you really need to consider him. Contrarian play, maybe that's what you'll get your action, but I don't think you need to go there. Enes Kanter, you and I both love him. The fact that he's getting the minutes finally, which we've been begging for because he's a walking double-double. When that happens, over 40 fantasy points in the 3 games. Nice mid-tier price point, 7,500. I like Al Horford tonight because, like I said, no Aaron Baines. He's probably going to get additional run. He fills up the stat sheet. He's not going to wow you with anything, but he's a flirting triple-double the majority of the time. He's 1 rebound off, 1 assist off a triple-double against Toronto 2 games ago. So I think Al Horford's in an interesting place tonight. And then we'll finish this up with JaVale McGee. Do you trust him or do you not trust him tonight?
I mean, as long as we saw McGee, he's playing with this tempo perfectly. Pick and rolls, running the break, that's what he does. He's an up-tempo guy. He won't give you more than 20 minutes. But during those 20 minutes, he's just going to run up and down the floor full speed ahead. So, yeah, I think he's fine. I think him, if we're talking him, Ersan Ilyasova, Noah Vonleh, all in that sub 5K range could all be sneaky tournament plays.
Yep. Noah Vonleh is an interesting guy because he's pretty cheap across the board. Played pretty well in once Knox went out with the injury against the Celtics the other day. He's at 4K on either site. Had 13 rebounds and 7 points against Boston. So some rebounding upside. He had a double-double in opening night against Atlanta too. So definitely keep him if you're making some GPP lineups. I think there's some appeal there. It is 6:30, James, so you and I are going to jump into the subscriber chat over on Fantasy Lab. So hit us up on there. We're also on Twitter. You can see our Twitter handles below us. But James, want to read it up to everybody?
at _the_real_grande.
And you can find me on Twitter at jmpemba777. Optimal lineups are on their way right after this live stream, so be on the lookout for those. And good luck, everybody.
Later, guys.